I'm also joined by Mr. Abhishek Rastogi, who's a CN advocate, and PN Vijay, who's a senior banker and economist, is also joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Rastogi, if you could weigh in on this development once these interest rates are slashed, it's going to be a big setback because a lot of people, and of course this is known as the retirement fund, a lot of people bank on it, a lot of people depend on it for their latter part of their lives. What is your view on this, and do you agree with Mr. Rungta that the process is not transparent enough?
See, I think there are a couple of thoughts here. One, that certainly if we see the subscriber base, it will impact to about 6 crore subscriber base. But out of those 6 crores, my estimation is that about half of them would be hard hit because they would certainly be dependent on some returns from these EPFOs. So from that perspective, yes, about 30 million subscribers would be hit possibly below the belt with respect to this slash. The second important aspect is the timing. So if we want to prescribe this rate for the entire financial year 21-22, and at this stage we are in March, so hardly any time left in this financial year. So I think that timing will remain a concern because this was not expected. Now, we must understand that this is the lowest rate which has come in last 4 decades. So last time it was in 77, 78 that it was 8%, and it has always been more than 8.25% in all these 4 decades. So I think from that perspective, it is important that, should we go down to that level? Of course, we understand that there is a need for a certain stability. We also know for a fact that based on the estimated income, which is coming to about 768 crores, this has all been determined. But yes, the timing could have been improved. The transparency could be better. Can there be a mechanism to ensure that those people who are falling in not a very high income group and have still invested in these funds could get some sort of relief so that the brunt is not equal for everyone in that category from these refunds, from these benefits. So I think while we understand that economic reflection is the direct corollary to this rate reduction, the global crisis, oil prices, gold prices, if we see, all of those cumulatively are leading to the conclusion that there must be rethinking of reducing this rate. But I think as far as India is concerned, we must be mindful that this income remains the income on which a lot of people are dependent, on what a lot of these subscribers are dependent. And sometimes in few cases, this is the only investment which they make in a year. So from that perspective, is there a need to go down to that rate, which is as low as in last 4 decades?
So they might understand that the interest rate has been cut, but the technicalities of it might overshadow or might cloud their judgment. But for the...
See, I think that's an important question which you have raised. We must understand that if this interest rate would have continued at 8.5%, there would have been a deficit of about 3,500 crores. Having said that, we must also understand that the tax buoyancy in the country has improved significantly in this financial year. If we see the GST collections, they have exceeded far beyond expectation, 130,000 crores per month. And if we see even the advanced tax collections, that has increased tremendously, which means that the tax buoyancy has increased beyond expectation, even if there would have been, even if we say that there is global recession and so on and so forth. So the point which I want to make is that while, of course, we understand that at 8.5%, there would have been a deficit, but I think the government must come at the forefront now to make good the losses which would be there to the fund by making appropriate interest being given to these investors, subscribers, for a reason that as we speak, the tax buoyancy is not bad. The tax collections are not bad. And so in the larger interest of things, some 3,000 to 5,000 or 6,000 crore rupees being used for this purpose would help significantly the subscribers, and it would not have the downside. It will boost the confidence because a lot of these subscribers, even from the legitimate expectancy, perspective, if we see these investors have invested this, assuming that they would get about 8.5%, and suddenly if that gets reduced to 8.1%, that is basically reducing their output to the extent investment to
Right.
the extent of 5% returns. So from that perspective, I think the government has a role to play, keeping tax buoyancy in mind, and also keep in mind that both the corpus of the fund and the return of the fund has reduced, because a lot of people have gone in the COVID situation. A lot of deaths have happened because of this, maturity has happened. So the corpus size has reduced. The return has reduced because of the global recession and so many other factors, which, investors must understand. But I think the pragmatic approach will be that the government steps up and says that we had announced for 8.5%. We've been giving this rate for last 2 years. It would not come down to 8.1%, and possibly have a pragmatic approach of keeping it to
All right.
8.3%,
Okay.
and possibly using the tax buoyancy to pay this amount.